This right here gonna be a cakewalk.
For Tekken 8, the Deluxe Edition and Ultimate Edition both come with a playable character Year 1 pass. This is referring to the Season Pass. It also has 4 additional playable characters. This is referring to the DLC. DLC has changed fighting games in ways that no one could have imagined. We already see with Street Fighter 6, they're already jumping full first into the DLC. Rashid, and then they have AKI, and they have other 2 characters coming up. For Mortal Kombat, they have Omni-Man, Homelander, Peacekeeper. For Tekken, we don't know who their DLC's characters will be. This is what this video is going to be about, but you can just see already how impactful it was in previous games and how they're, without missing a beat, carrying that tradition into the next phase of these games. One thing that's important about Tekken 7, and we have to keep that in mind when talking about Tekken 8, is how unprepared they were. Season 1, we got Noctis and Geese Howard, 2 guest characters, and also 2 characters, that's it. For Season 2, we got 5 returning and 1 final guest character, which is Negan. All 5 of these returning characters had their own level of varying success, Armor King being one of the most successful, not only as DLC, but in the whole entire game. He ended off Tekken's lifespan, at least on PC for ranked, being the 4th most popular character in the game. Tekken 7 was not meant to last as long as it did, and as such, with Season 3 and Season 4, they kind of changed the format once again. This time they added frame data to add to the longevity of the game. They added 2 new characters, Leroy and Fakamab, 2 returning characters, Zafina and Ganryu. They wanted to give those characters another opportunity to be popular. It still wasn't the case, they still weren't popular, but they did some interesting things with Zafina too, that kind of acted as some kind of story DLC, and is leading up to Tekken 8. For Season 4, you have Lydia, Sobieska, and you also have Kunimitsu. Both of these characters come with their own stages, and that's pretty much it. With each one of these season passes, you can see that the developers changed the format every single time. The amount of characters switched, the amount of stages switched, everything constantly fluctuated. And with Tekken 8, that's not going to be the case. 4 characters will probably be the standard for every single season pass. Now, I'm going to operate under the expectations that they're going to do 4 season passes, 4 years this game will be supported, and then we'll move on to Tekken 9. So when you're talking about which characters will show up, of course you got to talk about all the characters who's already on the roster. 32 characters, we know who those characters are, so those characters is out the way. I do believe there will be some characters who show up in story but not necessarily be playable. For example, I think a unknown could have a secret boss battle, maybe not even a secret boss battle, just a boss battle. They would want people to experience her and learn a little bit more about Jun Kazama, because this is her introduction back into the game. Tag 2 wasn't really that popular, so a lot of people who are fans of the series don't even know who she is. So this is a good way to tie her back in. And kind of the same thing with Angel. Get a lot of people more familiar with who this character is and what they do. Same thing with Ogre. Ogre had a very big impact in Tekken 3, was the reason Jun Kazama was missing. If you want to bring Jun Kazama back, you got to at least reference Ogre. Master Raven, I could see her being a story feature. I don't know if they will also put her on the roster as DLC. Conflicting with Raven, that would be difficult. Also, I think Baek-Dusan could show up in the story. I don't see him being playable now that Haran got more of his moves, but I could see this character acting as a mentor type of character. Haran experiences some kind of trauma, and then he speaks to Baek-Dusan. Baek-Dusan gives him guidance, aid. I don't think Jinpapi will be a playable character. I think if they do want to bring him back, he'll more likely be tied into the story some way, somehow, maybe referenced. But Jinpapi is one of my favorite characters that appeared in Tekken Tag Tournament 2, so I would celebrate his return. I have another section here that talks about characters that will be referenced in the game, so not necessarily tied to story. Maybe we'll see a billboard, a statue. With the arcade quests, anything is possible, but you have Combat, Mokujin, Sebastian, Ganryu, Lee Wulong, that's Lei Wulong, Roger, and Eliza. Now for the actual DLC characters themselves, the format is pretty simple, and I think Season 2 for Tekken 7 gives us an example of this. You start off with returning characters, and then at the end you cap it off with guest characters. I feel like that's going to be the format for every single season pass. Either they cap it off with a guest character or they cap it off with a brand new character. But I think the 3 characters leading up to that will most likely be returning characters. And for Season 1, everyone's talking about Eddie, but I don't think Eddie will be the first character they'll use. I think of it in terms of Akuma. Akuma is one of the most sought after characters in Street Fighter, but they're saving him to the end. And they're doing that to where 1 year later, when the game is kind of like old news, you drop Akuma, you make a splash, you gain attention, you bring people back. So I think they'll do the same thing with Eddie. They'll put him at the end of Season 1 to bring as many people back as possible. Get the game trending #1 1 year later. But at the start, I think they'll probably do like a Bob, And I was split between a Bob or Miguel because really these characters are interchangeable when you're talking about popularity and player base and stuff like that. The reason why I went with Bob is because his Bob Burgers is featured all throughout the game. So I feel like that reason alone probably makes him the first character. Now next here I have Josie. The reason why I have Josie here and not Bruce is because Harada basically mentioned the character's name. This is unconfirmed, but in the backdoor meeting that took place at EVO, people were talking about DLC, yada yada yada, and Josie's name was brought up. So this kind of makes her more likely in my opinion. But I always said it was a coin toss between Josie or Bruce. One of these characters would show up on the base roster and then the other would be saved for DLC, but it seems like both of these characters will be saved for DLC, so it's really just a matter of which one will come first. But what I believe will happen for season 1 is Bob, Josie, Eddie, and then a guest character. For season 2, Bob and Miguel are interchangeable. I think it will go Miguel, JC, and then Armor King. Now JC is a kind of an interesting one. I think it could be other characters like the Lucky Chloe, Akunimitsu, Anna. You could put so many different characters in her position, and really what I want that to symbolize is just a female character. I think a female character will take that middle roster, and it may not be the female version of Julia, which is JC. It may be a different character. But then Armor King, capping off season 2. I mean, they did it in the past with Tekken 7. It was super successful. This guy was the most popular in the whole entire game. Why not do it again? So to me, I feel like this one is a no-brainer. And if we continue the idea that the 4th space will be saved for a new character or a guest character, that would cap off season 3. Even though I'm not really talking about which guest characters could it be, we can definitely talk about a Kirikazama, a Tifa, a Baki. Just looking at how much money they're throwing at Tekken 8, I always talked about price for Tifa, the price for Kirikazama. Price at this point doesn't even matter, and I think one of those 3 characters will show up regardless at this point. Anyone you pick from, the community will be happy. I think it's more likely that they go for Baki, maybe a Kirikazama, because I don't know about the whole doing Final Fantasy twice, but really any of them is on the table. Season 3 was kind of difficult because it's so far away and it's really hard to speculate on what the game will look like this far. Like, I don't even know if they got this far to where they already have a confirmed set of characters for season 3. It's so far away and we don't know how the game will turn out. But just heavily theorizing, I think the characters who are in the runs for being there is Lucky Chloe, is Alex, and Bruce. Lucky Chloe, even though she's very controversial, she is still very successful. And controversy is a form of success in a weird way. For Alex, I don't think they'll do Roger because Roger can never be in the game again. We talked about this, PETA will not allow it, but Alex, he can be. And also I feel like Alex should have been on the base roster. You could tie him into Kazuya Mishima, the story of G Corporation. His story that was set up in Tekken 2 seems like it would be very interesting to introduce, but maybe that will be something they'll do as DLC. Also, you talk about how unique the character's fighting style is. This is something that could not be ignored. The reason why I put Bruce in season 3 at the end of it instead of Josie is because when you talk about having a very cool character cap off the season, I don't think Josie is strong enough to do that, but Bruce is definitely strong enough to cap off season 3 in a major way. I mean, look at these 3, Eddie, Armor King, and Bruce. These 3 characters kind of speak to one another. The one thing is, putting Bruce 3 years away, that would be chaos in terms of like players' expectation. So that's the one thing that I was trying to factor in, is like every season pass further down the road is a year away. And Bruce, in my opinion, he was first in line to be, if they did a season 5, they would have did Bruce and Jun Kazama or an Alex. So I feel like putting Bruce so many years behind again, I don't know how people would feel about that. Once again, the 4th spot will be saved for either a new character or a guest character. But I was also thinking maybe even Lydia, you know? Season 4 is even farther away than season 3, and it's really difficult to speculate who will be in here, because the thing about season 4 is this would be, in my opinion, the end of Tekken 8. What characters would you put in the game to represent the end of Tekken 8, but also sort of hint at what's to come with Tekken 9? You could do so many different characters. It's really difficult to say who it should be and who it should not be. Maybe a Heihachi.